So we're going to be looking at cells and tissues. So in this slide, we're going to be looking at the function and the structure. So we're going to be looking at the cell. Now there's lots of things going on in the cell. It's really complex, can be quite complicated. So the way I think about it is imagine it like a city. And when I imagine like a city, it really helps me understand the structure and function. So we're going to start off looking at the organelle. Now the organelle are like little rooms in a factory, and each room has a specific job to do. And this allows the cell to do its functions and tells each part of the cell what to do, and it's where all the action happens. The next part of the cell is called the cytoplasm. And I remember the cytoplasm as the water supply. Now the reason being is humans all need water to survive, and it gives us our nutrients and vitamins that we need. So with the cytoplasm, that's exactly what it does. It's a jelly-like substance, and it contains our nutrients and vitamins for our cells to nourish and to keep healthy. The next part is the nucleus. This is where it stores all our DNA. So this is all the information that our cell transcripts into and transfers it into messages for our cells to carry out its actions. And I compare this to a control centre or town centre, where it gathers all our information and uses it, and that's exactly what the nucleus does. The next part is the membrane. Now the membrane are like our security guards, and what do security guards do? They stop people from coming in and out that they don't want. And that's exactly what they do as well. So the membrane is like a little security guard that lets what we need into our cells and stops bacteria and foreign invaders coming in and destroying our cells or killing them off or doing anything that they would like to do. The next part of the cell is called the mitochondria. And the purpose of this is to provide energy for our cells. So I think of British Gas or an energy supplier. The mitochondria ensures that our cells have enough energy for it to carry out its certain parts. So they've got certain jobs to do, and it has enough energy for them to do that. The next part is our lysosomes, and I think of this as our recycling centre. So what happens is it breaks down all the waste and all the good. The goodness goes back into our body, which we then use for other things. And then the recyclable waste then is used for new material. The next is our endoplasmic reticulum. Now these have folded sides that look like motorways. It also helps transport our cells from one part of the body to the other part, and that's why I compare them to the motorways. Now there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum. We have the rough and we have the smooth. So we're going to now be looking at the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and I think of these as our protein factories, where they produce the protein that our cells need. They work alongside the ribosomes, and the ribosomes are attached, and that's where they get the rough look from, and the name as well. What happens is the proteins then get delivered to the Golgis, which are then transported by the endoplasmic reticulum. And like you remember me saying in the previous slide, that's like our motorways. We are now looking at the smooth. So very similar to the rough, but as they've got the smooth name, they don't have ribosomes attached. But they're still a kind of factory, but this time they're producing enzyme and lipids. And what these do, they build up the cell membrane. The next part is the ribosomes, and I think of them as construction workers. Now, if you remember from my last couple of slides, I was talking about the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and they were the protein factories. So you need to imagine the ribosomes are the workers inside that factory, creating the protein. And what they do, they help repair any damaged cells, so then they can carry out their cell function correctly. The next part is the Golgi. Now this reminds me of the post office. The reason being is because the Golgi then sorts and sends the messages that it needs to the cells for it to carry out its duties. So it receives proteins from the endoplasmic reticulum. So if you remember, that was the motorways, and that's where it gets the information to be able to carry out its job. So we have some facts for you, just a few to go through. So cells do repair. Damaged cells can repair themselves, but not all cells can be repairable. And once they're damaged, there's no way of getting them back. So that's where we get things like Parkinson's disease, anything to do with the nervous system. There's certain parts of the nervous cells that do not repair, and that's why we can only manage them with medication at the moment. We have trillions and trillions of cells, and they all have specialised jobs to do and functions. So you can imagine we've got billions around our body, which is really fascinating. So cells group together to make tissue, and then tissue group together to make muscles. And then also cells can divide, and this is also called mitosis. So whenever you hear of cell division, that process is called mitosis. So we're going to just quickly look at the functions. Now we have 7 functions to a cell. They are growth, and this is where it grows to expand, and this is when we talked about the cells grouping together to make tissue. The next part is excretion. This is where the cell excretes any waste that it doesn't want. Then we have respiration, and this is where the cells use the energy to carry out their duties and jobs, as I mentioned earlier. We have reproduction. This is where the cells reproduce. And we have then movement, and this is where our cells move around the body. The last 2 are irritability and metabolism. So this is where we sometimes find that we're irritable to food, and how our food then is processed and broken down, and that's all linked also to like our thyroids.